Welcome. This is MoneyHeart, where we explore the emotional side of money. I'm Camille Diaz, and today we're discussing growing a healthy financial mindset. My guest is Renee Arledge. She's a mental freedom coach, owner of Reiki for Transitions. Renee Arledge is a certified aroma freedom technique practitioner and instructor, Holy Fire 3 Reiki Master teacher, and instructor for AFT ULA, a formula for a balanced and growing life. She has 20 plus years of experience as a master herbalist and Reiki master teacher. She has taught natural health classes for Marywood University's Senior Learners Program and alternative therapy classes in North Pocono Public Library. She teaches AFT ULA internationally. Renee, welcome to Money Heart.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on today. I'm super excited about talking about financial mental sets.
Yay! Awesome. We just mentioned what type of work you currently do, but before we get into talking about growing a healthy financial mindset, how about you clue us in on what you used to do?
So for a very long period of time, I was actually an investment advisor, and I worked with people that had, $1 million or more. So I'm very familiar with the wealth arena and what people need to do with their money, what they can do with their money, what they want to do with their money, how to make the best plans, that sort of thing. So yeah, I've worked in that area for quite a bit.
Awesome. I love that. So just so that people understand kind of what that means, if somebody wanted an appointment with you and wanted you to be their financial advisor, they had to have at least $1 million in assets that they were going to place with you before they could get on the calendar. Is that accurate?
That's correct. Right.
Very cool.
So I worked with a lot of millionaires.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. You mentioned to me when we first talked about this episode that oftentimes the parents or the people that were your clients that you were meeting with had a very different view of money than their kids did. What did you see there? How did that kind of play out?
Well, that was always an interesting dynamic between the parents and the children, because in some cases, the parents were very involved with, where the money came from and how they got it and how they saved it and what they wanted to do with it, the plans they had for it. And the kids were never really involved. They were kind of like off to the side. So they never really learned what their parents were doing with money. On the other side, I also had parents that were very involved with getting their children involved. And so I also saw areas where the children knew exactly what the parents were doing with money, and then ended up learning how to handle, larger sums of money, how to deal with wealth and what to do with it. And it was, interesting to see the two different pieces play out, because if a parent didn't tell their children about, where the money came from and how they invested it or how they cared for it to grow it to the portions that they had, the children didn't have that money mindset and maybe really didn't know what to do with money, didn't know how to create a budget, didn't know how to spend wisely, didn't know how to save for something. Whereas the other side, where the children were very involved with what was going on with the family wealth, they knew how to have a budget. They knew how to save. They knew what money could and couldn't do. So it's a very interesting dynamic to see both sides of that coin.
Yeah, for sure. I'm wondering if the kids are in a position where the parents just kind of hand them the money, but they don't know where it came from or how it worked. Did it end up being that they just sort of assumed you don't need a budget because money's always there, you can have whatever you want type of thing?
Yes, oftentimes we would find parents that didn't involve their children with the wealth planning, or even just having a budget, would just kind of give their kids money whenever the kids needed money or wanted something, that the children just assumed that it would always be there. It would always be there for them. They would always have it whenever they needed it. They could just go to mom or dad and get it. Even as they grew up, and became parents themselves and maybe had their own jobs, they still weren't handling money well. So they still maybe didn't have a family budget. They maybe gave all their kids the money that they brought in and then went to their parents, the grandparents, to get money for their household.
Wow.
So always very interesting to see.
Wow, that is interesting because they're thinking about, okay, they're making money, but instead of using that to run their own household, they've gotten into this habit of, well, I'll just ask mom and dad to pay for my stuff, so all this money is extra, so I could just let my kids spend it or spend it on whatever. That's really setting up a generational sort of, I almost want to say, pitfall.
Yeah. I would say it's a pitfall too. Yeah, you get this generational mindset that money is always available. All you have to do is ask the next older person, the next older generation for the money, and the money will come down to you. And that can really be a big problem for generations in the future, because if the wealth isn't passed on, but they still have this mindset that money's always going to be there, what happens when the money's not there? Then they're really stuck. They don't have an idea about a budget. They don't have an idea about saving. They don't have an appreciation for accumulating wealth.
Right. Yeah. The accumulation of wealth. So you said something really interesting there, when the wealth isn't passed on, because we kind of think, well, obviously they're going to inherit it. And I'm sure that some people do, which is another question, but maybe they don't, if it's not always passed on.
Well, that's another interesting thing that I saw working with different families. If mom and dad have wealth and they've accumulated it and they've cared for it and they don't teach their children about it, a lot of times you will find that the children don't even know how much wealth there is. And so what will happen is, if there's more than one child to give wealth to, the parents may not decide to divide it equally. And so maybe one child would be given all of the wealth, thinking that that child is responsible enough to share it with the rest of their siblings. And that could be a real serious problem after mom and dad are gone. Then there's other times where, mom and dad accumulate the wealth, they pass it on to their children. The children have not been educated on how to take care of it, and they blow through it. And within, a couple of years, there's no more money to pass on to the next generation. And they're kind of stuck holding the bag because they don't really know how to make money, keep it, spend it. So it can get, it can be gone like that.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing how quickly one can spend money if you want to. It can just disappear.
Yeah. And if you don't really think about it, if you don't really think about how you're spending the money, you're spending it on things that you need, or you're spending it on things that you want, or you're spending on it to impress other people. I've seen that happen too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that one, for sure.
Yeah. Extravagant gifts, vacations, trinkets, all kinds of things that people can spend a lot of money on very quickly.
Maybe we need to do a show one day about here's how to lose all your money if you want to. Where to spend it. So when this happens, what's usually the deal? Do they ever realize they're draining the money faster than is sustainable, or do they just come to you when it's gone and you're like, sorry, I got nothing?
I've had it happen both ways. I've had it happen where children inherit money and realize that they don't know what to do with it. And so they look for a money manager to help them manage the money. And I always like to educate anybody who, inherited wealth and doesn't know what to do with it, to just kind of give them an education along the way so that they understand, because an educated investor is a smart investor.
Oh, yeah.
Very successful investor. And I personally like to see my clients succeed no matter what. And if they need help along the way, that I felt like that was what I was there to do, was to be that teacher, that educator. But I've also seen when they come to find a financial person to help them, when it's kind of too late. You know, there's not a whole lot you can do because you've gone through most of it. And now we're just going to have to learn how to live with what's left. And then there's a big discussion about what it is they want to do with their money. What do they want this money for? How do they want it to be used? You know, can we build a plan around it to grow it if maybe they want to see if they can grow it back to where it was? So, you know, that's always an option too. It's never too late to start investing and starting to create a nest egg. That's, you're never too late to start doing that. So we would, you know, we'd have these conversations and figure out where they are and where they want to be. And then we create a plan to get them there.
I love it. Yeah. How are you helping people now with their money mindset? Because what you do now is very different.
Yes.
From
so
what
now
you did before.
What I do now is very different from what I did before. In a lot of ways. I'm not focused just on money. I actually help people to balance and grow their life in 7 key areas. Fitness, finance is definitely one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Family, field, faith, friends, and fun. And when you balance and grow these 7 key areas, you can really pursue your happiness, whatever your happiness happens to be. So everybody's different. It's not a cookie cutter process, but the framework is the same for everybody. And it is, like I said before, you need to figure out where you are and where you want to be and how you're going to get there. And in the finance area, one of the key things we help people do is to get out of debt and to grow a nest egg all at the same time. So you're looking at where you are. So you figure out, you know, where are you? Do you have a lot of debt? What do you spend your money on? Let's take a look at your budget. What's your income? What are you what are you spending on? What needs to be paid every month? You know, and we do it on a monthly basis. And we work on a little process called the green gap. And it's a very simple process, but it works amazingly well over time. And it works much more quickly than a lot of people think. When I tell you what the design is, you're going to think, well, that's just so simple. How does that possibly work? But if you stick with it and you keep going forward, you can really see a lot of changes in a very brief period of time. I've seen the changes in my own life. So here's the basic plan. You first create a budget. On a monthly basis, you do this. So it's not like a one-shot deal, but every month you sit down and you make a column of all of your income on one side. And your income can be from your investments. Your income can be from your job. Your income can be from selling items that you no longer need. You know, if you're doing some stuff on Etsy, if you have a little income coming from Young Living, like any of those little side jobs you have, all of that income is included in one column. And then the other column, you're going to put down all of your expenses. So when we say expenses, we're not just talking about your bills, not just like electric and sewer. And, you know, we're talking about your mortgage. We're talking about your car payment. We're also talking about your food bill. How much do you spend on food? We're also talking about, you know, if you go have that latte every day, that's part of your expenses.
Right.
Okay. You know, if you tithe to your church, that's part of your expenses. Whatever it is that you're spending money on for that month, you're going to put in this other column. Now, you're going to have months where you're going to have extra expenses. Somebody's birthday, somebody's anniversary, Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving, Halloween, right? Almost every month. You're gonna have a little bit. Yeah, absolutely. So put that in that column too. That's why we do it every month. Mm-hmm. And then we compare the two. So we take our income, subtract our expenses, and see if we have any money left over. If we have a zero balance, that's great. We have a balanced budget. You know what? There's a lot of states, there's a lot of countries that don't have a balanced budget. If you got a balanced budget, you're in good shape, right?
Yes,
but
balanced budget is good shape for sure. Yes.
Balanced budget is a good shape. Now, if you want to start getting out of debt, though, you're going to have some kind of income left over at the end of the month. Mm-hmm. So there's ways to actually have control over that. A lot of people do not think that they have control over their budget, over their income and their expenses. You really do. So the first thing you need to do is take a look at your expenses and decide, do I need that latte every day? Or can I do it? Can I break it down to like once a week or once every other week, right? Special occasion. You know, do I need to spend $100 on my child's birthday party, or can I spend $50 on my child's birthday party? You know, like, where can you cut back? If you have a big cable bill, you know, or now it's satellite bill, right? So if you have a big cable bill or satellite bill, do you really need that bill? Are you really watching all those channels? Or is that something that you might be able to cut out for a little while? I've seen people so focused on getting rid of their debt that they will not have TV for a year. I've seen people do that. I've seen people so focused on getting out of debt that they will do whatever they need to do, cut whatever they need out of their budget so that they could have that little extra bit of leftover at the end of the month. So that's a big thing is, you know, what are you going to do? How are you going to cut your expenses?
And then figuring out what's your priority and where your highest value is, what's important to you. If being out of debt is the most important, you'll sacrifice whatever other things you need to, and you won't be mad about it. You'll be like, nope, I'm good. I'm getting out of debt. Like, yeah.
If you knew in a year you could be debt free, wouldn't you do it?
Right.
Right.
If it's important.
It's important and you could see a way to do it, wouldn't you take the steps?
Right.
Right. So the other side of the coin too is you could also look at your income. Can you do some overtime work? Right? Can you clean out the garage maybe and find a couple extra bucks in there? Right?
Yeah.
Can you gather up all your change in your house and take it to the bank and, you know, have a little extra cash that way? There's lots of ways. You know, a little side job. Maybe you're going to create a blanket for somebody for a shower. You know, there's lots of ways that you can create a little extra income every month to help with your debt.
Mm-hmm.
So say we have a positive number at the end of the month. Our income exceeded our expenses. Fabulous. Good job. We call this the green gap because there is a green gap between your expenses and your income. You have money left over. That's our green gap. If you had a negative amount, so you had more expenses than you had income, that's a red gap. That's not good. We don't talk about that too much. We don't want to be there.
Right.
So the green gap. So you have this little bit of money left over at the end of the month. This is our green gap. And we have a special formula to use for the green gap. Because if you're thinking about going through an entire year to become debt free, that's a long time to sacrifice. So with the green gap idea, what we do is we say you take that green gap at the end of the month, you do 45% towards paying off your debt, you do 45% to invest, and 10% for you to have fun. So you can go ahead and have that latte.
That's right. Or ice cream or movies or whatever. Yeah.
Right. You can use it however you want. You can even save up that 10% for a couple of months and go on a vacation somewhere. Right?
Yeah, you really could. And I like this plan because one, it's giving you a reward. So you're not just suffering and struggling and hating life. And 3 months later, you're like, screw it, I'm going to be in debt forever because life is terrible unless I am. Right. So it has that. But it also gives people that easy way to know they can save for their future and pay off debt at the same time. Because you and I both know it's the time that makes the difference on the retirement savings, the future savings. You got to have the time. And I hear so many people say, oh, well, I'm paying off some debt, so I can't start saving. And I'm like, you won't have time. You know, by the time you pay off your debt, it's been 5 years or 10 years or however long you take to do it. And you lost all that time you could have been gaining by putting something away. So that's a cool plan.
Yeah, with the green gap, you get to do all of it at the same time. You get to pay off your debt, you get to invest for your future, and you get to have a little money to spend on yourself. So you're not working to kill yourself. You're not working to pay off your debt and killing yourself without having any fun.
Yes.
This way you're doing a little bit of everything And over time, you'd be amazed at how quickly you can pay off your debt and find yourself financially secure.
Well, when it starts to work, we get excited, and then we find ways to make that gap bigger, so you can put some more in savings and put some more on the debt. And oh, look, I got to take a trip, because I had that 10% actually amounted to something.
Yeah, and you get to take a trip that you paid for. It's not on a credit card. You didn't take out a loan, right?
That's right.
You're staying on that debt-free path.
Yes.
And yeah, we can get buried in debt so easily with school loans and mortgages and things that the kids need. It's so easy to say yes, yes, yes to everything. Find yourself beyond your eyeballs in debt. And then one day wake up and go, how am I going to pay all of this off?
Yeah.
So if you have a nice little plan like the Green Gap plan, it actually is doable and you can see results.
Right. So now I'm curious, if someone got a windfall, like an inheritance or a bonus or something like that, would you use this same plan for that, as far as if they've got debt, put some aside for future and then fun?
Sure. You can definitely use the Green Gap idea for a windfall. So say you inherited $50,000 and you had debt and you wanted to save a little bit and have a little fun. Take that 50,000, 45% to pay off your debt, 45% to go into investment for future use, and 10% of it spend on whatever you want to spend it on, right?
Right. Yeah.
So it works for a windfall and it works on a monthly budget too.
And $5,000 of fun spending is pretty good. I think I could do a lot of fun with that.
Mm-hmm. And some people will even take less, like if they have a windfall like that, and then we're like, oh no, I just need like $2,000 to go on vacation with my kids, wherever they want to go. And then they'll have that extra $2,000 that they could leave in a savings account for them to spend for fun later. Right?
Yeah.
Spend once.
Yeah. For next vacation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So.
Very cool. I love it. That's great. And I like this concept of teaching the kids the best practices, like you talked about before. And this is a really simple one that I think kids could learn, if they need it. Not, hopefully nobody has kids that are in debt, but if your kids are older, they might be in debt. And this is an easy way to help them get started getting out of it.
Yeah, it's great for, high school kids. They're getting their first job and they have money in their pockets and they'll want to spend it. It's a great way for them to learn how to save for the things they want and spend a little bit on having fun.
So what happens if you've gotten yourself out of debt and you no longer need to do that 45% there anymore? Is there a way to rework it? So we say, okay, now this much is going to future investing and this much is going to savings and this much is going to fun, or how do you rework that?
So I've seen people do it slightly differently. So they would take the part that they would normally pay off for debt and save it to buy something like real estate. Something that they might have taken a mortgage out for or might have taken a loan out for. They put it aside specifically for that.
Mm-hmm.
Then the other 45%, they're still investing in like the stock market or however they're investing that. And the 10% they're still using to have fun.
For fun. Okay. That's kind of what I was thinking too, is like, all right, debt's paid off, emergency fund, grow that up. And then, okay, that's done. And I love that, okay, what is it we want to buy? Are we getting a TV, a car, a house, that type of thing? And you could save up for it and pay cash and not have any more debts.
Right.
Very
exactly.
cool. Very cool.
So like the teenager idea is that a lot of teenagers want to, have a car.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they can, when they get their paycheck, that 45% can go towards the car, 45% can go into a savings account or into a small investment account for themselves, and 10% they can use to go out to the movies or hang out with their friends or whatever they're going to do with it.
Yes.
Right?
Yep. I love that. Thank you. This has been awesome.
Oh, I'm enjoying this. This is so nice to have this conversation. I love sharing this information with everybody because it's very simple, very doable, and if you have the discipline to sit down with your budget every month, this can really work for you.
Right. So simple. So simple. Just figure out what your budget was and see what your gap is. Hopefully always a green gap, and then you have a really easy plan. So I love it. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
If you'd like to get in touch with Renee, she can be reached via email at reikifortransitions@outlook.com or through her website, reikifortransitions.org. Her phone number is 570-575-3077. Thank you as well to all of our listeners and viewers. I'm your host, Camille Diaz. This show is sponsored by Serenity Financial, a Five Rings financial agency specializing in financial education, living benefits, and guaranteed lifetime income. Be sure to follow MoneyHeart on social media at MoneyHeart Show or on our website, moneyheartshow.com. Renee, would you like to share today's money mantra?
Yes. You are designed for greatness.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. I really had fun.
Me too.